bunch of soldiers for hire at his back. Two-Face, Riddler, hell, even Penguin. Now they own this town. They always will. I liked Batman's old car. You know, it had a kind of retro classic car thing.
Alrighty. What is going on? So, as the title suggests, I wanted to really quickly just address this because I believe it doesn't have a role anything to do with Batman related content. It does, however, have to play with a role of mental health, which is a pretty decently sized topic we cover on the podcast side of things. Anyway, as the title suggests, it is not breaking as the title says exactly, but it is relatively new. And I'm not sure if it's part of the One Big Beautiful Bill or not. Anyway, there is an executive order for Trump to move homeless people off of streets and into, as far as I know, government designated houses, designated homes. How does that relate to mental health exactly? The White House, and this is from USA Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, in a statement to USA Today, said Trump is delivering on his commitment to make America safe again and end the homelessness across America. By removing vagrant criminals from our streets and redirecting resources toward substance abuse programs, the Trump administration will ensure that Americans feel safe in their own communities and that individuals suffering from addiction or mental health struggles are able to get the help they need, Leavitt said. End quote. Trump's actions come after the Supreme Court ruled in June that people without homes can be arrested or fined for sleeping in public spaces, overturning a lower court's ruling that enforcing camping bans when shelter is lacking is cruel and unusual punishment. And then homeless residents of the southern Oregon city of 38,000 face fines starting at $250 and a jail time for repeat offenses. So, it really does seem great on the face of things, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, left or right. If you hate Trump or love Trump, that's completely up to you. It's a great proposition, I would say, just to start things, because it does finally address a big issue that is plaguing America, which, I think is a massive issue and one of the reasons that so many people voted for Trump, because there's been such an uptick in crime and homelessness, particularly crime and homelessness being intertwined, crimes being committed, i.e. drugs, drug selling, stuff like that, and that correlation to homelessness as well, which I think is extremely important. The statement by USA Today said, first, the safest communities are those with most housing and resources, not those that make it a crime to be poor or sick, said Jesse Rabinowitz of the National Homelessness Law Center. As a licensed mental health professional, I know that forced treatment is unethical, ineffective, and illegal. And that is completely true, that latter half of the statement, although where I think he's wrong is that it's forced treatment. I don't think they're forcing treatment. As far as I have seen, it is the Trump administration trying to get people off of the streets, which is an objectively good thing. Once again, it doesn't even matter what side of the aisle you land on. It's definitely a better thing to have people off of the streets than needles lying all around. When you go into places like Kensington, Philadelphia, or places like that, you can definitely see a lot of that. Continuing his statement, people need stable housing and access to health care, Rabinowitz said, which I'm not sure what he means by health care exactly, because literally 5 seconds ago he said that it's illegal for the government to force mental health care on any persons, and then here he's saying that people need stable housing and health care, which once again the government would be providing both, so that's completely hypocritical by him. Stable housing, i.e. provided by the government, which is what they're doing here, moving people off the streets. Access to healthcare, once again, which he's both for and against, apparently. Rather, Trump's actions will force more people, and that was end his quote after healthcare. Rather, Trump's actions will force more people in homelessness, divert taxpayer money away from the people in need, and make it harder for local communities to solve homelessness. I'm not sure what he means by people in need. Once again, I mean, we have this massive budget. Across the United States, more than 771,000 people live without housing in 2024, according to the HUD count taken annually on a single night in January. It was the highest tally ever recorded, an 18.1% jump from 2023, when officials counted about 650,000 people living in homeless shelters or in parks and on streets. So I'm not exactly sure why it's an issue. From Fox, additionally, the order requires Bondi to partner with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner, and Transport Secretary Sean Duffy to prioritize federal grants to cities and states that enforce prohibitions on open illicit drug use, urban camping and loitering, and urban squatting, and the track of location of sex offenders, according to USA Today. So these are all great things that I'm seeing so far. I'm not sure exactly why the hypocrisy is needed from USA Today, especially, you know, the man from the Homless Association. From CBS, the president's orders asks Attorney General Pam Bondi to reverse judicial precedents and end consent decrees that limit state and local governments' ability to commit individuals on the streets who are at risk to themselves or others, according to the White House fact sheet. It also commits federal funding to move people on the streets who are causing public disorder and that are suffering from serious mental illness or addiction to treatment centers, assisted outpatient treatment, or other facilities. So once again, they're just moving to treatment centers. They're not forcing any actual treatment onto the persons. They're moving them to the centers, off the streets. And then I would assume because the person is not allowed to use drugs or, you know, any addictive substances outside of the watch of the caretakers in the treatment facility, that they would be trying to get clean, which is a net positive. So I'm not sure why there's so much criticism around it. Could it be unethically used? Of course. Could it be a grab at power? Of course. But that's not exactly what I'm seeing. That's not exactly what I'm reading. From CBS, the same article, shifting homelessness, the executive ordered the president also asks Bondi to work with the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Department of Transportation to prioritize federal grants for states and cities that enforce prohibitions on open illicit drug use, urban camping, and loitering, the White House said. The order was first reported by USA Today. Quote, President Trump is delivering on his commitment to make America safe again and end homelessness across America. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that in a statement, by removing vagrant criminals from our streets and redirecting resources towards substance abuse programs, the Trump administration will ensure that Americans feel safe in their own communities and that individuals suffering from addiction or mental health struggles are able to get what they need. Completely out of the question on why the National Homelessness Law Center would condemn it, this action. I completely don't understand why. I can understand if it is a move by the Trump administration to grab at power and move people off of streets, a bit like we saw in 2020, where it was kind of like an enforcement by a government agent. I can completely understand that. That's not what I'm seeing. That's not what's being reported at all. So I'm not exactly sure what the issue is. The people are just are being moved into the facilities with the hope that they... Good thing. What are some potential problems with this? Because there are plenty of problems that do present themselves. Are the people able to use the drugs in the facility centers? Personally, I've been, as I'm going to college for psychology, I've been in different mental health facilities, and they don't allow, especially rehabilitation centers. I've been in a few of those. Rehabilitation centers specifically don't allow drugs or alcohol. If they do, some of them don't, some do allow smoking. If they do allow smoking, it's usually supervised and only during a certain time of the day. There's usually a men's unit, which will go out first, and then a women's unit who will go out second, or vice versa, however the facility operates. And the people will get to use their smoking time. Then I could get I wouldn't understand if the treatment facility didn't stop someone from bringing in drugs or, bringing in pornography or stuff like that would keep their, addiction ongoing. I wouldn't understand why that would be needed. So hopefully it's, they're just moving the people off the streets with the better intent of helping them get clean. At the end of the day, will that be helpful? Which is the big question. And I think it depends on the person. I don't think it can be a yes or no answer. It depends on the person if they're wanting to get clean. I know a lot of people who have addictions. I've met a lot of people who have addictions and they want to get clean and they can't. And then I've met even more people with addictions who don't mind having the addiction, having the issue, because it's a stimulant. They enjoy the stimulant. It's, I wouldn't say it's fine, but it's understandable. And, I can't get angry with a person for wanting to continue that thing that feels good. That's why it was created. So I could see I could see some potential issues. I think it comes down person to person, because if a person is in a treatment facility and they are trying to get clean intentionally, they will have a ton of luck, I believe, with on-site therapists, with any psychiatrists. Some facilities have them, some don't. Just, being in an environment where everyone's trying to be better is that moral support. You see that a lot in churches or places of worship where everyone's trying to accomplish the same goal, and that kind of motivates you to do the best you can as well. So that, that's a big reason that treatment facilities are very helpful. So a person who's struggling with addiction, being that in that environment, that'd be very helpful for them. If they're not, however, looking for help, they'll probably find a way to sneak drugs in. And I think that might be a big issue with this order. So if someone's put into a treatment facility, and they don't care about getting clean, so they go out. A lot of the times they can't really go out by themselves. They'll usually have a caretaker with them. But anyway, they find a way to get drugs or cigs or something into the building, or alcohol or pornos, whatever, into the building that, is keeping everyone off the, on the streets. They get away, they find a way to get all that stuff in, and that's not helping the people who are actually in the center get clean. That's doing the complete opposite. It's doing the complete opposite, because the people are in that environment once again, having those drugs around them all the time and stuff. So There's a big problem with that. I'm not exactly sure how they would get around that. From Fox, homelessness has increased in the U.S. by 18% from 2023 to 2024, according to Housing and Urban Development's annual homelessness assessment report in January. Saw that from CBS, I believe, right? Yeah. Trump has previously vowed to clean up American cities, especially the nation's capital of Washington. From CBS, in March, Mr. Trump called for Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser to clean up all of the unsightly homeless encampments in the city, specifically including the ones outside of the State Department and near the White House. He added that if she was, quote, not capable of doing so, we will be forced to do it for her, end quote. He signed an executive order directing the National Park Service to clear all homeless encampments off federal lands. He also signed a separate executive order in March aiming to dismantle the United States Integrity Council on Homelessness. The president pledged to remove homeless individuals from the nation's streets during his campaign. Quote, when I'm back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets, end quote, Mr. Trump said in spring 2023 campaign video. The National Homelessness Law Center said that the order, quote, does nothing to lower the cost of housing or help people make ends meet, end quote. Forced treatment is unethical, ineffective, and illegal. That was a quote we read already from Jesse Robinowitz. So, and CBS did raise a valid point in the money side of things. How will this help with lowering costs of housing or helping people make ends meet? And I'm not sure if that is exactly where America's, big issue is right now. I mean, obviously lowering cost of housing or helping people make ends meet, those are top issues, but that both Democrats and Trump ran on. But I don't think that's the point of this executive order. Is not to help lower the cost of housing or of living. It is supposed to get people off of the streets, hopefully get people into a more clear mental space, and actually try and make them enjoy life and see the beauty of life, which is what a lot of these people do need. And I think it's a really good action. It's actually moving instead of talking about it. Sorry, because I've seen many Democrats run on it. I believe Kamala Harris ran on that in 2020. Once again, CBS and USA Today are definitely more left-leaning. I don't get why the Democrats would be exactly angry of that. Why, if that's what their candidate ran on. But I see it as a positive. If we can get people off of the streets into a mindset that helps them appreciate life and helps them appreciate people and everything, good, let's do that. Why are we pausing? Of course, once again, there are concerns that are raised. Cost, obviously, although I don't think that the cost of the program is exactly where America's priorities are at right now. The article did point out housing and cost of living costs. I think that's definitely where the number one issue stems from. I don't think it is trying to get homeless people off of the streets, don't get me wrong. And you saw this with California when Xi Jinping came into California, is Gavin Newsom very easily had the streets cleaned up. So I don't think it would be a massive massive issue to be able to pick up the needles, pick up the feces, pick up the people, and actually, clean up the streets and make things a bit better outside again, and a lot less dangerous for those who may be subject to any harm caused by individuals who are not in the correct mental states. So that is my take on that. I'll be putting the news articles in the description if you guys want to take a look at them. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. What do you think? I know, once again, this isn't really Batman-related content, but I believe that this is a mental health and Batman-related content, related channel, sorry. And those two work together, and they also work separately. So if there's ever big mental health news, I'll be reporting on that. If there's ever big Batman news, I'll also be reporting on that. And in the meantime, I'll try to keep them intertwined so that those who are searching for this kind of content, comic-related content with a real-world element in it, will have a place to be. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe. Once again, let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys later.